hang around with the Silicon Valley billionaire crowd and a bunch of techies, and you'd think fusion is just booming. Commonwealth Fusion, actually based in Boston, with a Canadian as part of the core of it, raised $3 billion in capital. Helion Energy raised more than $1 billion. TAE Technologies more than $1 billion. Pacific Fusion almost $1 billion. So there's just all this excitement of these new companies driven by startups, and there really are truly new ideas out there. Um, and I'm pretty damn skeptical that it's going to actually make power. So let me first say the positive. These things are way better ways to spend the money and much more plausible than what governments were doing in this collective thing called ITER, which seemed to be mostly designed to eat a large pile of cash and excrete something that wasn't very useful. It's an international project that is way over budget in time, that was following what had appeared to be the most plausible route, which was called a tokamak, a toroidal system for confining a low density plasma, in experimental mode. It's being built in Europe with conventional superconducting magnets, and it's just got terrible project management by formal reviews. And I think Commonwealth Energy is basically very similar tokamak design, but using a completely different class of magnets, these low temperature, high temperature superconducting magnets that can make stronger fields, kind of twice as strong, and a bunch of things go as the cube of that field strength. So there's ways in which it's just clearly a better pathway. And some of the other ones use quite different pathways as well. I think one reason that I'm skeptical is that what all these fusion, or almost all of these fusion pathways are doing, is trying to do fusion between deuterium and tritium, two of the heavier and even heavier isotopes of hydrogen. And that's the very easiest thing to fuse. And when you do, you get a neutron out that has very high energy, 14 MeV, for those of you who are keeping track at home, if I remember the number right. And maybe Sara will correct me because she would know if I was remembering it wrong. And those neutrons go deep into materials. When you look at the steel that holds these things, people talk about the DPAs, which is the number of times an individual molecule of steel or atom gets bounced around over its lifetime, and they're in the hundreds, and steel swells and things become radioactive. And that's true even if everything else is working. And the challenge of making this kind of first wall, or generating power at an economic price from this, is intense. One way to say it is, I believe that it's right that if I gave you a free source of 14 MeV neutrons, it might not be as easy as you think to make economic power from it in a way that would really compete with nuclear power, other ways to make power. So I think I'm excited. I actually started my career in Canada's laser and plasma physics lab that was working on short pulse laser fusion. I was working in high school, so I think it's important. But I think the caution is the enormous difficulty of going to actually make power at cost, and the fact that fusion doesn't magically get you out of some of the connections or proliferation risks.
Yeah, it's funny, David. I actually wrote, I won't say how long ago that was, but I wrote my college entrance essay on what would happen if we had fusion power. So definitely in that camp of, we've been hearing about it for a while. I do think that there is something to be said that, our ability on this laser control has really increased dramatically. So, the idea that we might get there someday still, I think, is not unimaginable to me. But I think the timing mismatch of even if that is possible, to when we really need these massive amounts of low carbon power is just not going to work out. And in the meantime, we've got a nice fusion source in the sky. So it's hard to compete with that here on Earth.
One shout out to a Canadian thing. There were two basic approaches to fusion: holding a plasma, very hot but low density gas, for a long time, or taking a little pellet and squeezing it very fast with lasers or something else. Those are the two extreme approaches. There's an intermediate approach where you take some gas that's kind of magnetized and you crush it. And that's called magnetized target fusion. And I think there's a lot of innovation there. And a Canadian company and a Canadian person really led that with General Fusion, which I think was a wonderful idea. I think it had very little chance of working commercially, and it's basically failed now. But there are a bunch of other ideas that are related to that. And Michel Labarge, who started, is very open about the fact that that company wasn't that likely to work, but that other things related to it may end up working. And there really are new ideas there that are exciting.
Yeah, it reminds me, fusion, it seems that while the idea is scientifically thrilling, the commercial prospects are always shaky. Reminds me of two jokes. And one is, no matter where you are in history, fusion is only 10 years away. And the other one, and I just told this joke at a carbon capture conference up in Edmonton this week, why is fusion like high school students and sex? Why? We talk about it a lot more than we actually do it, and those who are doing it aren't doing it very well. And you can apply that to a range of technologies, so I think it's pretty apt for fusion.
I mean, I guess I can just agree with Sarah. I do think there will be commercial and useful fusion power at the end of the century. I think it will be used for some things. I think there really is room for innovation. I just don't think there's going to be commercial power that plays a lot of decarbonization in the next few decades.
I guess used for some things when, even if you really crack the physics, it's competing with what we talked about last time, dirt cheap solar and wind and batteries that are scaling really fast. And so I think it could be used, but it's still going to be niche or prestige technology, not anything close to like the backbone of our energy system.
100 years from now, we might have a significant off-planet economy.
Okay. So fusion is not just 10 years away, it's only just 100 years away, no matter where you are in history.
We'll have to leave that for our descendants on energy versus climate.
Yeah, our energy versus climate grandkids.
Our children, they have to take over.